Do we have anyone outside? I want to when there's no shows, it doesn't give a chance for people who are on the wait list. Maybe more people will join later. Okay, it's good. Audio's good. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another session of the Azure Qatar community. How many of you are first timers? I think I see some new faces. Okay, a couple of new faces. For those of you who haven't heard about the Azure Qatar community before, this is your first time. Essentially, this is a place, a community for everyone interested in Azure, which is Microsoft's cloud platform. And we host talks and sessions delivered by Microsoft employees. So Fatah and myself work here. I'm a data and AI solution architect, and Fatah covers apps, DevOps, and .NET, all those exciting stuff. And we also have other organizers from the community that have been working in the field for a long time, and we cover topics related to everything Azure, right? So like whether it's data and AI, we've been doing a couple of talks around that. We also have sessions last week. So who attended last week's session? What was last week's session about? Well, adoption framework, which is related about how if you're a company and you're thinking about moving your infrastructure to the cloud, what are the things to consider and so on. And we also planning to do, we've been running for like 2 years now. And we're planning to grow the community even further with more talks related to security, DevOps, infrastructure as a code, and so on. So if you're someone who's interested in holding on, delivering a session around this topic, feel free to reach out to me and Fatah, and then you can deliver a session. All right. So if you attended last time sessions, I did mention that we're doing this thing called like job shout out, where we just mention people who are hiring and people who are looking for opportunities. I didn't really receive much people who mentioned that they're hiring yet, except one place. They're looking for someone that's very proficient in .NET. So if you are someone like that, just like reach out to us and we'll connect you to that person who's it's a big company that's looking for someone very experienced in .NET. So yeah, and I'll just give this opportunity for anyone that just wants to say anything or mention about if you're a company and you're hiring, just like this is your opportunity to shout out. If not, we'll get started with the session. Okay, so raise your hand if you've heard about Microsoft Fabric before. And keep it raised if you've used it. Okay. Not that many people have used it before. So for those of you who have their hand raised, what are you using it for?
Hi everyone, I'm a data specialist / engineer. I use it basically on daily basis to host my dashboard, my Power BI report, and I also use it for managing the deployment of the dashboard within my team. So it started as the hosting infrastructure for my dashboard, but every now and then I start to experience and found out that it's much bigger than this. There are tools for data cleansing. Mm-hmm. There are some tools for transformation and so on. So I deal with it on everyday basis. I mean,
Great. Anyone else wants to share about their experience with Fabric? Okay. So what is Fabric, right? So for those of you, how many here in the room are working in the data space? You deal with data sets in some way or format in your day-to-day job? Okay, we have a couple of people here. So you would know that analytics is very fragmented. Let me just use the space. That analytics is very fragmented, right? So as an organization, you have data in all different departments, right? So you have your HR databases, and then maybe you have like your finance and then the IT, and they're using, oops. And every project has different subsystems. Every team is using different products, different vendors. And what is going on with this laptop? I think it's possessed. Okay, let's just see. There's so many different copies of just the same data format.
Is the time thing on the slide?
I'm just gonna stand here, guys. Okay, so I don't see any timer.
Keep slides updated. This one.
Pause the slideshow.
Okay. Okay. So there's different copies of the data, there's different tools, and if you look at the landscape of data and AI products, there's just so many different vendors, and each one of them have their pros and cons. And a lot of the time, if when you're working on an organization, you're just spending a lot of time just integrating these things. All right. So if you're, oh gosh, wait, what is happening here? Let me just do this. And I'm just gonna, do. Okay. So, yeah, there's different tools. You're spending so much time integrating, but there is a silver lining, right? So analytics has, okay, wait, guys, let me just do it the old school way because I don't like this. Let me just do this. And then just. Okay.
Well, I believe in the slideshow, there's an option to use timing something. Can you go to the slideshow tab on the top
The option.
menu? Go to the slideshow.
Oh, you mean out there? Yeah.
Can go back.
Yeah.
Slideshow, yeah.
Yeah.
Click that one. Use timings. Remove that one. Yes, and then.
All right. Let's see if this, you just performed an exorcism. Let's remove it. And then let's see if now it's doesn't move. Okay, great. If it does that again, I'm just gonna cancel this talk, guys. Okay, so we talked about how the landscape for data tools is there's way too many tools, way too many options, different formats. You have like someone in your you have data teams across different departments and they're not talking to each other. There's a lot of silos, and let's say you're a new data analyst in the team. You're just spending so much time trying to understand where to get the data, how to connect to it, who to talk to get the data. Can you trust this data? How often does this data get refreshed? And a lot of the time is just wasted integrating and finding the data source instead of doing something of value, which is either developing AI or machine learning models on top of it, creating dashboards that are of value to the business users, and driving value from the wealth of data that you have. Oh, great. It stayed like that. Thank you, Fatah. You saved the day. So, but there's a silver lining, right? So analytics is predictable. We have the data development cycle, right? So you start with getting your data into one place, right? So integrating your data, and then you perform some massaging to the data, you make it into a specific format, do some cleanup, and then you would store it somewhere like a relational database or non-relational database or lakehouse or warehouse. And then you could do different things with it. You could do real-time analytics, right? So maybe you have data coming in from IoT sensors, or you could do also data science on it, develop your models, build prediction models, forecast models, and also develop dashboards and BI, business intelligence on top of your data, right? So the pattern is predictable, right? And Microsoft has all of these products already with the right scale for each part of the data journey, right? So for data integration, you have Azure Data Factory. For engineering, you have Spark. For warehousing, you have Synapse. And then we have Azure ML and Power BI, which is which is the top BI tool in the industry. And we have all of these the components around governance, like Purview. So we have all of these tools, and they're doing well in their individual domain, right? But it's still a bit complex, right? There's still different products. Each one of them has their learning curve. So maybe if you're working with Power BI, yeah, you know how to do your modeling and all that, but to actually get the data and do some advanced transformations, you need the help of a data engineer to do that. And oh my God, just like communicating the requirements with them, you have to go through so many iterations. And maybe you're like, okay, khalas, I'm just gonna learn to do data engineering myself. There's like a big learning curve to it. And still, it's more of like a pass service. So does anyone know what do I mean by pass and SaaS? Raise your hand if you do. Do you want to explain it to the
I just don't know the actual stands for.
Okay, right. So what do they stand for?
Platform as a service and then software as a service.
Yeah. So basically, you could say like 3 tiers, right? There's infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and then software as a service. And as you go up, there's less sort of managing or less knobs you need to turn, and more of it is on the vendor that's giving you that product, right? So think of like, let's say, infrastructure service as like you deploy a VM and then you do all your data work there, right? So you're just getting the infrastructure, but all the other components, it's on you. Platform as service, something like Azure Data Factory, right? If you want to develop an ETL pipeline, you don't need to do everything like from scratch. You have like that orchestrator there. And then SaaS is a level further than it's sort of like Power BI, right? It's like that clicky, draggy experience. A lot of things are managed for you. So that's what SaaS offers. And we're going to talk about how Fabric is the first data platform which answers the problem that people or an organization face when working with data by developing a SaaS platform. So, and this is something that we're proud of at Microsoft. So Microsoft, who is familiar with the Gartner Magic Quadrants, right? So Gartner is an organization. They rank different vendors across different domains, whether it's AI, BI, or any other tools. So when it comes to business intelligence patterns, Microsoft has been in the lead for the past 17 years, and not only in the BI space, even in AI and data, Microsoft has been the lead, has been a leader in this space. And you're gonna see why when I explain more about Fabric and we get to look at some demos, and those of you who've already experienced why a lot of organizations go with Microsoft when it comes to answering their BI, AI, and data needs. So what is Microsoft Fabric? It is a complete analytics platform. It's lake-centric and open. I'm going to talk about this in a bit. It empowers every business user. So Microsoft Fabric is it's not meant just for BI developers or just data scientists or just data engineers. It's for every data citizen in an organization. And of course, it's AI powered. So these are the different, what we call workloads in Fabric. So you have your data factory, your data engineering, your data science, data warehouse, real-time analytics, Power BI, and data activator. So these different workloads answer the questions for different personas, right? So if you are a data engineer, you can leverage Data Factory and the data engineering experience. And if you are a BI developer, you would be leveraging Power BI and doing semantic modeling. And all of this is packaged under like one product, one interface, one very simple UI. If you've already used Power BI before, you'll be very familiar with Fabric. And all of it has been made possible with this concept of OneLake. Think of OneLake as your OneDrive, but for your data. So, and there's been a lot of engineering done behind OneLake, right? So you might be thinking, oh, so is Fabric just like all of these different Microsoft products just all wrapped together? No, it's not just simple as that. There's been a lot of engineering and innovation done to make them work seamlessly and to have all of these, the data that comes into your OneLake in one specific format called Delta Parquet. And then allowing all these different engines to run on top of them. So whether if you want to run Python, you want to run T-SQL, you want to run Spark, you want to run KQL, you can do that. All of that is possible because it's in the OneLake. All right, and we're going to delve deeper into this in just a bit. Right, so Fabric is a complete analytics platform. Everything is unified and it's secured and governed. It's this lake-centric approach. So whether you have structured data, unstructured data, and if your data lives in other places, it lives on-prem, it lives with other cloud vendors. You have your data on Google, you have your data on Amazon, Oracle, you have like some APIs. We're going to talk in a bit like how you can bring all of this data into OneLake through different formats, either just bringing them in through ETL jobs, or there's concepts of shortcuts and mirroring that we're going to talk a little bit in just a bit. And of course, it's a very familiar and intuitive experience, right? So think of another way to think of Fabric is the office tools, right? So you guys use PowerPoint, Excel, and Word, and it's very easy to use it, right? It's not rocket science. So when the product team created Fabric, they were trying to answer this question: why does it have to be so hard when you work with data? Like, why is it so hard to just take a CSV file and just, be able to upload it into a data warehouse and create reports on top of it? Instead of making all of this complex, you have this very easy interface to work with. Okay, and Fabric is the big when Satya, the CEO, announced Fabric 2 years ago, he said that this is the biggest thing that Microsoft developed since SQL servers, which is a big thing. And the product has been evolving every day. There's a lot of new advancements, and so many Fortune 500 companies are already using it. So again, what is Microsoft Fabric? It is all of these different unique personas, all in one place. With you have like single onboarding experience, right? So if your data team doesn't have to work with like 25 different tools, they can use Fabric. And even if their data lives in these other tools, there's ways to integrate it with Fabric. You have one place for one single truth of your data, one single copy of your data that you could trust. There's the governance component. There's a lot of like DevOps that you can add for your data. So let's say if you're a team of like 10 BI developers, how are you going to make sure that you're collaborating when you're working on your reports, right? There's Git integration. Let's say if you're also developing a Python model in your Jupyter notebooks, how do you have like CI/CD around that? And every single one of these components has these features, right? So by now, what I would want you to know is, what is Fabric? A single unified platform, an AI-powered platform for all data citizens in an organization. And please, if you have any questions, raise your hand and we'll be happy to take them. Okay. So again, Fabric puts insight into the hands of your people. So it enables really what a lot of organizations look for, which is SSBI, self-service BI. And with a tool like Fabric, that is possible. So your data being in different sources, whether it's like in Databricks or like other third-party tools. And if you have also, you're using like the Power Platform, like Dynamics, all of these different tools can be integrated with Fabric, right? So like, that's where the word comes, right? It stitches everything together. That's why it's called Fabric. Okay. Let me show you this quick demo of the Fabric experience. So let's see if the audio works.
In this demo, we'll take a look at how different data professionals can easily get started and collaborate in Microsoft Fabric. We're starting out on the Power BI homepage, which is the ideal environment for a BI analyst that wants to build data sets and reports. However, Fabric offers many persona-based experiences. I can easily navigate from Power BI to something like Synapse Data Science. We see the suggested items change to experiments and models, whilst the recommended materials focus on getting started with ML models. Since I'm a data warehousing professional, I'm going to navigate to the Synapse Data Warehouse experience. And let's get started by creating a new warehouse. All I have to do is give it a name and choose a sensitivity label, and I am instantly navigated to the warehouse experience.
So you
I
can
did
see
not
how
have to
it's
set up any
simple.
clusters,
You don't need to go through a lot
networking,
of
or storage
scripts.
accounts.
Just clicking and
As
dragging
a
and
first step,
it
let's put
provisions
some
all the
data into
services
my
for you.
warehouse. I can navigate to my pipeline experience in a single click and can choose from many
There's a ton of
connectors
different
that will
data
bring
sources
data
that it
in
can connect
at
to.
petabyte scale. I'm going to choose Azure SQL as my source, select all the tables I want to copy, specify column mappings, and that's it. I can now start copying my data. Navigating back to the warehouse, I can see my tables have been automatically created for me. I can explore my data by filtering it directly in the table view or writing my own SQL queries. Fabric experiences cater to both pro developers and low-code users.
And this is a
In the
really great
warehouse
value.
case, this
If
means
you want to
that
click and
users can
drag, you
leverage
can.
a visual query editor
You want
for
to write
creating their
code, you
queries.
can.
Users can use a graphical user interface, including the ability to do complex joins without ever needing to write any code. In Fabric, we have also combined the data warehouse directly with Power BI, making it really easy for data engineers and business analysts to collaborate over the same data. Here, I've got the built-in modeling view, where I can easily create relationships between all of my different tables. I can also use this experience to add new measures that I need for my BI model. And because these experiences are all integrated, we take care of performance tuning and keeping all the data in sync. Now with one click, I can create a Power BI report. I can see my tables, including my newly created measures. I can drag and drop my fields into the report, and I can see that my table has 30 million rows. I can now build out my Power BI report just like I normally would. Navigating back to the workspace, I can see my entire project is ready, with my pipeline, warehouse, dataset, and report. I can also see how everything comes together in the
You can
built-in
also see the
lineage view.
lineage. You have the lineage view.
To
You see how
conclude,
everything's
Microsoft
connected.
Fabric dramatically simplifies the process of building out end-to-end complex analytics projects. I was able to ingest data, build out my data warehouse and BI report, all without needing to configure any infrastructure or leaving the Fabric experience. In this demo,
So this is what Fabric essentially is, right? So it's one place for all of these different components, so that you don't have to, like you saw in the demo, it's one single interface for doing data engineering, for doing data science, for creating your reports, which is also exciting. And then, so if, I know, for example, some people don't like the fact that if you want to work with Power BI, you gotta install, you use a Windows device, right? But and with Power BI Online, it's almost the same features as Power BI Desktop now, and you can develop all your models over there. Yes, Ibrahim.
About the previous video, you mentioned lineage. What do you mean by
That's a very good question, Ibrahim. So let me just take you back to that. So we have here, okay. So lineage. Sometimes, let's say you have a data warehouse, you want to know like what are the reports that depend on this warehouse? Like if this pipeline fails, how many dashboards will be impacted? If you have a semantic model and maybe you have like 50 different dashboards that are depending on it, how can you get this view? That's what lineage offers, to be able to see how all of your different artifacts are connected to each other, so that you can manage them. Yeah.
Understand the path of your data.
Yes. Yes, that is good, Mariam. Mariam is amazing with Fabric, so she's also going to help answer some of the questions. Yes.
There's one online question from Maya.
Maya.
Yeah, so we know that Microsoft Fabric is similar to Databricks. In what use cases should we use Microsoft Fabric? And in what use cases should we use Azure Databricks?
That's a very good question, Maya. So I wouldn't say Fabric is the same as Databricks because Databricks is still, there's still some knobs that you need to tune. It still has like that PaaS, platform as a service component. And it's also not a question of Fabric or Databricks. In fact, we have a lot of customers using both of them for different reasons. You can, if you want, do everything on Fabric, and then leverage some of the other components of Databricks, like the Spark engine and having like your data warehouse over there. And there's a lot of customers doing that. And you can still bring your data into OneLake, which in a bit I'm going to show you. We have this concept of shortcuts and mirroring that we talked about. So let's say you've already invested so much and created like your data warehouse in Azure Databricks. You can simply just have a shortcut to it in your OneLake. So shortcut, just think of it, like you have your desktop and then you just create a shortcut. You don't actually copy the data to your desktop, right? It just stays like in your C drive or something, but you just create a shortcut. So similar concept here in OneLake. You just create a shortcut to your Azure Databricks in a secure method, and then you can leverage the power of Databricks as well. So I would say when it comes to choosing which platform you would want, it's really use case by use case. If you've already invested and used Databricks, you can go ahead with that. But what Fabric offers is that full SaaS experience that no other platform offers. So if you're an organization and you're new and you're just starting with your data analytics journey, Fabric, like I would say, start with Fabric. It's so easy to just start a medallion architecture with a simple few clicks and creating your data warehouse and lakehouse. Yeah.
Also, one thing that is related to Power BI.
Hello. Yeah.
If they want to use Power BI Premium, they'll have to use Fabric.
Sorry?
F64.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to that about like the capacity and the licensing. Thanks for mentioning that, Mariam. Yes.
Yes. Just a quick one. I don't know if you will cover this, but I usually get confused between the data lake house and the warehouse. What's the difference between them?
That's a very good question. So lake house would be, I think I do have a slide. Maybe I'll show it in a bit. Lake house is for structured and unstructured data. Warehouse is for structured data. That's a straightforward answer. Right. So if you want to like do like some more like schema modeling, like your traditional SQL relational database. So that's what a data warehouse would be. For if you want to have like some more unstructured data, then you use a lakehouse. Yeah.
Does it create the data warehouse for you, or I have to prepare the model first on my separately, and then I import the tables?
Does it? When you say it creates it for you, you mean in what sense?
Because data warehouse is different than, for example, I have a normalized relational database. And then when you create a data warehouse, it's a different concept. There is like a star schema model. So I have to do the model offline and then import the tables, or does it create it for me automatically?
You would have to do some data, like let's say you want to implement a medallion architecture, right? So for example, a medallion architecture, for those of you who don't know, is essentially you have your raw data and then you bringing it into your like bronze layer, and then you do some transformations, and then you bring it into your silver layer, and then you have your gold layer, which is ready for AI and BI use cases, right? So to be able to, if you have, let's say, like a warehouse with all that, like let's say your gold layer, like you want to just be out of the box, you would have to do your data engineering.
I have to do the model first.
You would have to do some data engineering. We will see in a bit like how Copilot is integrated in each of these experiences to make it even easier, like to find those relationships, to be able to generate the code, to do some cleanup, or make sure, see if your model is following best practices or not. But of course, there's still some data engineering. We still need data engineers. So any data engineer, don't be so worried. Your job is still needed. And in fact, actually, that makes this tool makes it easier. So instead of worrying about like the syntax and the technical part, the data engineer's job would be to sit closely with the business and the BI team and understand how should the model be like, following the data engineering and concept, star schema and so on. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. So again, it is Microsoft Fabric is a SaaS product, and this is what I mean by SaaS. So it's easy to use. The infrastructure is managed for you. It's scalable. We're going to talk about it in a bit. where to get Fabric, you would need to provision something called Fabric Capacity through the Azure portal. And there's different tiers for it. So you can start from like the lowest tier up to the most extreme tier. So who's familiar with Power BI Premium? Right? So you would know, for example, for Power BI Premium, it's like a license that you would purchase and you would not need to have it for like one whole year, right? Whether you utilize it or don't utilize it, you're still paying for that. With Fabric, it's more of like a pay as you go model, and you can scale it up, scale it down depending on your needs. So let's say if you're a smaller organization and you want to utilize the features of Fabric, but you don't want to commit to like, I don't know, $10,000 a month or something, you can start with a smaller SKU, do your POCs, do your development, and then scale up and scale down depending on your needs. It really is flexible and it's accessible. Like I mentioned, you just need a web browser to be able to access the Fabric service and do your data modeling and have all your workloads there. So yeah, and again, it's optimized for different personas, just like we saw in the demo. So whether you're a data engineer or a BI developer, you don't leave the Fabric. You don't need to leave the Fabric interface and use like different tools. And this is something really powerful. So one of our customers who used Fabric, it really helped them to get insights faster. So a simple use case is a kindergarten teacher that wanted to get insights on her students and how they're performing. She had to go through like 27 different tools in order to see, like, one tool tells her like the attendance, the other tool tells her like the performance, other tool helps her connect with the parents and so on. So then Fabric was implemented for them, and having just all of that in just one interface and one copy that they can trust really made a ton of difference. So we're gonna, let me see. So there are a lot of slides here, but of course I'm not gonna walk over every single one of them. I'm just gonna skim through them because it's meant for more of like an introduction session. But I'm gonna talk about now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna delve deeper into each of these concepts that we have, like data science, integration, warehousing, BI, OneLake, and all these concepts. And if you have any questions, just raise your hand and I'll be happy to take them. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Mhm.
So, in Power BI, we have Power BI desktop, which make it easy. I mean, when you are working on Power BI desktop, it's more flexible than working on the Power BI service.
Okay.
For your report design and everything. So for Fabric now, so everything is on web, no desktop version.
So you can still use Power BI Desktop. So Power BI Desktop it's still, it's a free tool that you can use to develop your dashboards, build your visualizations, and then the same experience for people who prefer using the service is available on the service as well. So whatever works.
It's like a different solution side by side, but if you like,
yeah. So for some people prefer using the web, some people prefer using the desktop. In fact, the desktop is still needed because some features are still not available on the web. It's still like there's some features that are coming on the roadmap, but you would still need the desktop to do some of those aspects. And we're going to talk in a little bit about the benefits, the new benefits of having Power BI and a data source connected in Fabric. Yes.
Yeah, because most times your data source, they are on the on-prem. They are not on. When you are using the Fabric, your data source is online, either on OneDrive or on Azure or something. But sometimes you want to work locally. So in that case.
Oh, so you're talking about like Power BI report server? You're talking about like the on-prem version of Power BI?
No, I'm talking about we can't use the Fabrics on-prem.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to be online every time we want to make use of it. We have to connect to the internet every time we want to make use of it. Unlike Power BI desktop, that you can do it locally without internet connection.
But then eventually your dashboard, you would need to share it.
Yeah, that's
right. So then you would publish it to the Power BI service.
Yeah, so that people can see it.
Yeah, and then in order for that dashboard to still be updated, there needs to be a connection to the service and those data sources, right? So your data can still stay on-prem, but you need to establish that connectivity. So that connectivity is already going to be there in the service. So if you do your editing on the service, it's still gonna work and it's still gonna happen. So it's just a matter of like what tool is better. Power BI Desktop is still the tool of choice of everyone. You can't replace Power BI Desktop yet. You still need a lot of the features that are there. But I'm just wondering if you're also talking about Power BI report server.
Yeah, sure.
The report, because the report server is something different.
Yeah.
Report server is like fully on-prem. There's no connection to the
Just
internet
like-
at all.
SQL.
Yeah,
Service.
it's just like it's just like SSRS, right?
Yes.
So but that's a different thing. But Power BI service, which is like on the cloud, that's where Fabric would make a difference. Yeah.
Well, we have one more question on online.
Four?
For the sake of the time,
Okay.
your answer is short as
Okay.
much as possible.
Okay.
Why when Fabric is available in Qatar region?
That is a very good question. Who's asking that?
Right.
Okay. Short this year.
Okay.
This year, but exact dates can't be confirmed. It's inshallah this year.
Again, site is asking, is Purview a separate component? Do we need to pay additional amount to leverage this MS service?
You would still need to enable Purview on the tenant level and then integrate it with Fabric.
Is it separate? So it's an extra, they need to pay extra?
But it's still, as far as I'm aware, I need to check on that because I think you still need to provision it and then integrate it. But I know there's been some advancements in the past month. I need to check on that.
Sites, turn back to Fatima and ask her this question directly if you can hear us.
Okay.
Okay, another question. Can we connect ADLS storage across regions like West Europe to QC, etc., or do we need to have any limitations around?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when you provision a Fabric capacity and all of these workspaces, everything underneath is based on. Let me actually just go to that slide. It's a perfect segue to this. So everything is actually underneath. It's using ADLS Gen 2, right? So you can still use the ADLS. ADLS, for those of you who don't know, is Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 because there was a Gen 1. So you can still leverage your ADLS Gen 2 in terms of like the region. So it depends on what feature you're looking for. There are certain features requires your storage account to be in the same region as where your capacity is provisioned, right? Because you can have Fabric capacity is something you provision to the Azure portal and it can have like different regions. So there's some features that will require you to be in the same region as the Fabric capacity, some don't. I think they can refer to the documentation about it, or they can ping me if they have specific feature that they're looking for. Yeah.
One last question from Malt Adnan. As Fabric includes Power BI, and if we enable Fabric from Azure portal, do we still need to pay premium licenses?
No. So if you have Fabric, you will get you'll get all of these things. So it's not like you're just getting Power BI. Only if you go to the Azure portal right now and try to provision Fabric capacity, you will see Qatar there as a region. And you'll be able to use it, but you'll only be able to use the Power BI component because the full Fabric suite is not available in Qatar yet. So premium SKUs are no longer there. They don't exist. They've been retired since the 1st of January of this year. So if you're someone who's using premium SKUs, you need to think about how to migrate it to F SKUs, and there's a lot of documentation around that. And if they're a customer, they can reach out to us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So in some services, you have the option to use the service with basically like the underlying infrastructure being on-premise infrastructure. Would you have this option with Fabric or not?
I'm not sure if I understand the question correctly.
The idea, at least, so I'll give an example from
Yeah.
the AWS support. So I can use like something like an S3 service, but the underlying infrastructure is basically like storage that are on-premise storage, right? And I'm pretty sure it exists in Azure as well. My question is like, is this an option for Fabric or no? Do I have to use infrastructure that is hosted by Azure? The idea basically is the price. The main factor is
Yeah, so Fabric is a SaaS. So all of those underlying, I mentioned this underneath is like Azure storage accounts, but it's all managed for you. So you won't be able to provision. Once you provision Fabric capacity, it just automatically provisions all of these resources in that region. You won't be able to move it to a specific something that's on-prem. What you can do is just connect to data sources that are on-prem or other APIs that are on-prem. But yeah. Any other questions? Okay, I think I'm gonna have to go a bit faster because we are only talking about OneLake, but we have so many other components there. So The main thing I want you to know about OneLake is it enables having one full open access platform for all of your data. It brings it wherever your data is, like whether it's on Snowflake, Amazon, just brings it and converts it to the Delta Parquet format and enables all these workloads to run on top of it. So let me just skip this part. Okay. So yeah, this is the main takeaway you would get from OneLake is if you have your data in all of these different data sources, you can bring them into OneLake either through having pipelines that would bring them into Fabric, or you can use something called mirroring, which is essentially instead of writing these complex pipelines that will do like, incremental load and change data capture and so on, you would just enable mirroring and it will do what the name says. Anytime there's an update in this data source, it will automatically update whatever is in OneLake. And mirroring is you wouldn't pay extra cost for it. It will automatically, if you have certain Fabric capacity provision, like it will be covered by that. There's several sources that are supported in mirroring. Azure Databricks, it's not here on the slide. Oh yeah, we have it over there in regards to API. And now we also recently announced mirroring for Oracle DB and Postgres, and Snowflake is also something that is possible as well. And then you also have the concept of shortcuts, which let's say you have like an S3 bucket and you want to have some data over there, you don't want to bring it into Fabric, and you can still keep it there, but just create a shortcut to it and start, your data scientist or your BI analyst can do the work there without you giving them like, another data source to connect to it. It can just focus on having it in one place. Okay, so all roads lead to OneLake. Wherever your data is, you can bring it into OneLake using these concepts that we talked about. All right, so I'm just gonna quickly show this demo.
Existing workspaces, and I can even create new ones if I need to. Since creating workspaces,
I don't think we can hear.
I'll select an existing one.
Okay, I'm just gonna talk over him. So basically, what he's doing is he's trying to create a
Opening the data warehouse.
I
have one table,
different data sources.
Fabric data items, including opening that up. I can see.
Okay, so let me just show you this. So essentially, here they're just showing they create a workspace and then they're creating a warehouse. And then you will see here if you have your OneLake open, just like you have your OneDrive, you can have your OneLake on your device and be able to look at those data. And if you, let's say, you have like you're a data scientist or you're an ML engineer trying to build a model to detect, people from drone images, right? So you can you have that data set there. You just simply click and drag and put it in the OneLake through the desktop experience, and then you just refresh. You'll be able to see it in Fabric. As simple as that.
Fabric.
So let me just show you. Skip through these parts, right? So you'll be able to see the data, and yeah. So for example, here they're doing exactly what I just mentioned right now. They have this sunglasses images. They're just uploading it there, and then they can see the files there, and then they can just take the link of this folder, and then open up a notebook and then start doing their development there. No need to spend so much time going across and integrating.
By clicking on it and hitting properties. I copy the reading data from the
so here they're doing, for example, their data modeling and data exercise in Databricks, which is also possible.
I'll just replace the path here to my storage account with the path to my lakehouse.
Yeah.
I can see that.
And then they're able to conduct their experiment.
There are no data silos. Data is stored in open formats, and with open access, I can work with my data using.
Okay. And then also Fabric enables something, a data architecture known as data mesh, right? So if you have data from different domains, you can bring them in. So instead of sometimes some people criticize the concept of having all of your data just in one place because they're like, oh my God, it's just going to turn into not a data lake, into a data swamp, right? But Fabric allows you to have a proper data mesh through these concepts of domains where you can have like data attached to workspaces, and then these workspaces can be on domains so that you can discover what data is available for each domain. So let's say if I'm a BI analyst in the marketing team, I'll be able to see like all the data sets around that. Okay, so let me just go here. So this is essentially what OneLake is. It allows for one copy of your data in one place to run all of these workloads on top of them. And we talked about mirroring, which is essentially wherever your data is, you can bring it into OneLake with no complex ETLs. Everything is Fabric manages it for you. You just there's some things you need to configure, and then it's taken care of. And then with shortcuts, the data is not brought into Fabric. You just create a symbolic link to where the data is stored. All right. So let's just go for that. And then this is what I meant about like you can run different computes because it's all at the end of the day same data format, which is Delta Parquet. You can whether you want to use T-SQL, Spark, KQL, you can do your semantic modeling. You're able to do that. Okay, so let me I'm just gonna skip this step. Okay. And also one thing that OneLake offers, and this could help with those folks who are using Power BI and they're not sure. Sometimes they want to use import mode because obviously import mode offers caching, which makes your dashboards way more faster. And then you have direct query mode where basically you don't load your data into the dashboard. Your data stays where it is. And then every time a user interacts with the dashboard, it generates a query and then gets the data. And then the dashboard is refreshed. It's good because your data stays where it is. For some people, they want that. But then it's slow. And there's a lot of extra cost and burden on the source database. With Direct Lake, if your data lives on OneLake, it's sort of like the best of both worlds. It gives you you don't need to load the data into the Power BI file. It will still stay in OneLake, but because it's in an optimized Delta Parquet format, it gives you the benefits and the power of import mode. This helps a lot with with overcoming the shortcomings of both modes. All right. So let us go here. I'm just gonna skip these topics because we already talked about this. Yeah. So the same thing we talked about, like the lineage view, and then you also have this concept of OneLake Data Hub, where you could go and dive deeper in understanding the different artifacts that you have access to. Who owns this? Is this something that you can trust? Is this endorsed? What's the sensitivity of this data set? All of these concepts, you're able to see it in the OneLake Data Hub, right?
The OneLake Data Hub is the central location in Fabric to discover, manage, and reuse data. You can discover data relevant to your business domain, explore its metadata and lineage, gain insights, and take action. Let's have a look. In this case, I filtered to HR data, and now finance data, allowing business optimized consumption and enabling a data mesh paradigm. I can view recommended items or navigate by workspace and explore properties such as type, owner, and sensitivity. Viewing endorsed in my org allows discovering lineage for DemoLake by opening its lineage view.
Yeah. So we already discussed this. This is just an extra view of lineage to see
to the data in
what
the lake.
Sources depend on this data and what's the impact of
I'm
it.
getting data. I'll select OneLake.
Okay.
To see more information.
So then again, this is a summary of OneLake. It's essentially the OneDrive for your data. Each organization will have one instance of Fabric. So Fabric is something you enable on the tenant level, right? It's just like how you have like one M365 tenant. Like for example, let's say your company is called the Fatima Bakes. So there's only like one at fatimabakes.com. And then when I enable Fabric, it's going to be on the whole tenant level. And then your OneLake will be on that level as well. And then the workspaces is how you would split it into different categories or different mesh and so on. So you can have data, a lake house, you can have structured and unstructured data, you can have shortcuts, and then because the data is in the OneLake, it's able to talk to all of these different analytical engines. Okay, so I'm going to just skip a little bit to the concept. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about Microsoft Fabric capacity just to explain it to like how it works. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to show you straight away. So I'm going to go ahead and log in to my here. I'm going to log into my Azure portal. Okay. Here. And then I will go ahead and provision Fabric. So how do I get started with Fabric? If you already have a tenant, you can enable free trial. But if you want to provision Fabric, you would come to the Azure portal. You would look for Fabric, right? I already have a short screen. Oh, you guys should have. Okay, so let me just share this. Okay, so all I did is I just logged into Fabric. I logged into my Azure portal, right? Portal.azure.com, and then I just type in Fabric. And then I'm just going to create. And then this is how you create Fabric capacity. So what is Fabric capacity? It is essentially the compute for Fabric, right? So all these different workloads, you would need to have a compute for it, right? So you would come to the Microsoft Azure portal and then provision your Fabric capacity here. You can choose your resource group and then choose your region. So if you see here, Auto Central is available. It's just that you won't be able to use all the other Fabric components yet. You'll just be able to use Power BI. And then you can, there's different sizes or what we call SKUs. So it starts from F2 all the way to F256. And then depending on, think of SKUs and Fabric sort of like, when you buy a laptop and then you have like, 4 cores of, i4, i7. And, if you're maybe a gamer, you have like something crazier than that. So depending on your use case and what you're planning to use Fabric for, you would purchase this Fabric capacity. But then unlike your computer, you're not like stuck with it. Like, let's say if you want to upgrade it to something like, 256, you can, it's very easy to just upgrade it. You don't need to, start from scratch. So after you provision your Fabric capacity, then you would come into your Power BI or your Fabric portal. Okay. So this is how the Fabric experience looks like. So if you just go to app.fabric.com or app.powerbi.com, you would see this experience. And then when you want to start having these Fabric items, first you would need to create a workspace. So a workspace is essentially a place where all of your Fabric items live. And then you can also use it for collaboration. So also, guys, remember, I think I said this in the chat, but there's going to be a quiz at the end, and there's going to be a bunch of prizes. So I'm just giving you a hint, right? So what are workspaces? A workspace is a place for you to have all these Fabric artifacts there and then do some collaboration and so on. So when you create a new workspace, when you create a new workspace, if I come here, for those of you who worked with Power BI before, this is very, you've seen this before, which is great because if you're someone that's already using Fabric, Power BI, Fabric will be very easy to understand. You just give your workspace a name, you assign it a domain, right? So like finance, HR, and so on. You give it a picture, and then here you would choose like what license you want it to be part of. Now, I don't want to delve very deep into Power BI licensing, but just focus on the Fabric capacity one for now because that's what we're focusing on right now. When you provision your Fabric capacity, you will come here and then you'll be able to see all of the Fabric capacity that you have available, and then you just attach your workspace to that Fabric capacity, right? So it's on a workspace level. So let's say if you're, and this is really great because let's say if you want to have compute, like maybe you don't want to have like just one Fabric capacity. Maybe you want to have like a smaller one for your dev, and then for your production, you want to have like a crazy big one. So it allows you to separate these parts, and or maybe like you want to have one workspace in a region that you want to explore the features that are available in those regions. You can have like it's all on a workspace level. Okay. Yeah, and then once you create your workspace, let us see here. So I just need to give it a name. So I'm just gonna call it Azure Unity, and then I'm just gonna go ahead and create it. Okay. So as simple as that, you've created a workspace, and then let's say you want to start getting data into your OneLake, right? So you just click on new item, and then you'll be able to see all of these different workloads or artifacts that we talked about, right? So let's say you go to the get data section. There's different ways you can get data into Fabric: pipelines, data flows, mirroring, just like we talked about, whether it's Snowflake, Databricks, notebook. You can just write a simple Python notebook and connect to an API and then get your data and then put it into a lake house. And all of these other features as well, like you want to build an ML model, you have ML flow integration in Fabric to keep track of your experiments, and then you also, if I click on something accidentally, yeah, okay. So let's say if you want to use a data flow Gen 2. So data flow Gen 2 is essentially, for those of you who work with Power BI, it's essentially just like the Power Query editor, right? So let's say if I use the data flow Gen 2 to get my data here, you just simply create it and then get your data there. Okay. So you just click, like if you have a CSV file, all you gotta do is just like click and drag, and then you'll be able to access it. And then there's so many different data sources that you can connect to, right? So whether it's PDF files, other data sources, other artifacts in Fabric or in other platforms, as simple as just clicking on it and connecting to it. And you can see there's even some like APIs and so on that you can connect. Right? So let's say, for example, you want to connect to your Databricks instance. You will just have to give it the host name, the HTTP path, the connection, have a data gateway, which is essentially a secure method to connect to your data source. And then after you establish this, and simple as that, you'll be able to select the tables that you want and then create your data model and then do your reporting and your AI use cases there. So, yeah. Yes.
I was a bit confused about the Viber creating a workspace within Power BI, and it's not within Microsoft Fabric. But now it makes a bit sense when you're dealing with it, you're creating a workspace first in Power BI so you can choose your data source. Microsoft Fabric is one of these.
So workspaces in Power BI, now it's just workspaces in Fabric. So Power BI is Fabric. So it's a similar, so whatever you know about Power BI and workspace management and all this stuff, it's the same thing. It's just that now instead of just being able to have reports there, you'll be able to have pipelines, you'll be able to have notebooks, you'll be able to have data warehouse, lake houses in the workspace. Does that make sense?
Why we're not doing this from the Microsoft Fabric itself? Why?
So this is the Microsoft Fabric experience. I know, like at the top it says app.powerbi.com, but it's just that they both go to the same place. So if I just write app.fabric.com, it's just gonna show the same. Yeah, app.fabric.microsoft.com. It's the same interface. It's just that I'm used to writing Power BI because it's just muscle memory. But if I just connect to, you just go to app.fabric.com, you will see it's the same experience. They both go to point to the same thing. Right, so you would see this experience, but it's just say here, it's just this fabric. But if I just toggle over to Power BI, this is going to show me all of my Power BI components. So I can just toggle here, and then this is the fabric experience, which also includes Power BI.
Okay, because I think Power BI would be something like just visualizing the data, just to build in the dashboards, but everything else sits within the Microsoft Fabric.
No, so now Power BI is part of Fabric. I understand it's a bit confusing because of just the naming, but literally this is just because, some people would write app.powerbi.com, it will still take them to Fabric. If that tenant has Fabric enabled, they'll be able to see all the Fabric experience. If they don't, then they will still just see Power BI. Even vice versa, if they write app.fabric.com, it will just still take them to their organization's Power BI service, right? So you will see it also in some places it's used interchangeably. For example, before you had like the Power BI admin, but now that's just the Fabric admin, which is essentially the same thing as a Power BI admin, but with those extra Fabric workloads, right?
So I have a question.
Yeah.
So for one of the companies I've worked with, I created different workspace according to the set of people.
Mm-hmm.
Some for management, some for the some different staff. So in this case now, I will need more than one Fabric capacity.
No, you can attach the capacity to different workspaces. So that's to answer your question. But then I also would want to know, why would you create a workspace for different personas? What's your use case?
If I want to deploy the published report, I publish it to the workspace.
Okay.
So, and it is those members of the workspace that will receive the report.
Okay.
So I have different workspace, so that if I want to send it to this set of people, I will publish it to that workspace.
Okay, so actually, that wouldn't be the best practice. That isn't the recommended method of sharing reports. I was going to cover this in a bit, but since you already brought the question, so let me just go here. So let's say you already have this. Let me just switch over to my tenant here. So I'm just going to go to this demo environment that I have. So let's say you worked on a report here, right? Like I worked on a dashboard. This is my dashboard. And then I want to start sharing it to people, right? How do I share a dashboard? The way you're doing it right now is you would add them as a viewer to the workspace, right?
Member.
Member is not recommended, because basically when you add someone as a member to the workspace, they'll be able to edit the workspace. They'll be able to they will be able to see some of the settings. They'll be able to see the security settings and all this. And if you're sharing a dashboard with the CEO, that's not really nice for them to be able to see all of that. What you would want them to see is just the dashboard and be able to talk to it and do their analysis, right? So the best practice to share a report with business users is you would use what is called an app. So each workspace would have an app. Right now I already have an app, that's why it says update app, but for you it would say like create app. So you will create your app. You will include what you would give it a name, you give it a color. You would include what are the reports you want to add to it. So let's say in one workspace you have like 10 different reports. Are you going to share with them a link to each one of them? No, but at the same time, would you add them to the workspace as members and for them to be able to see like all your code, all your pipelines, all your artifacts? No. So then that's where app comes in. You just choose your reports, and then here you would come in, and then here you will have audience. So what you just mentioned, management and all this stuff, you can do them here. So you just go to the audience section, and then let's say like interns, you will only be able to see like one of these reports. Managers, they'll be able to see all of them. Contractors will be only able to see this. So you don't need to create a whole workspace just for an audience. You can just manage it all in the app. And then you can just have a security group for them, like managers, just the email alias to them, and then just add it here. So whenever someone new joins that team, you just add it to the emailing list, and then they'll be able to see what they're supposed to see, right? So that's just a note on. So you had two questions there. Actually, there was just one question, but then I just explained a bit more. So do you need a capacity for each workspace? No, just one capacity. You share it across workspaces. You can have multiple capacities for different workspace. And then the best practice for sharing reports. Okay, so I didn't talk a lot about Power BI because I'm planning to have a session where we just talk about just Power BI, we're gonna call it dashboard in a day. So in just 1.5 hours, we're gonna go through the whole Power BI experience. So maybe for those of you who've seen Power BI for the first time, maybe some things look confusing. So make sure to attend that session to learn more about it. Let me just go back to the workspace is where you would go to create your Fabric components. Okay. So let me now we have 20 minutes before we wrap the session, and I'm just gonna go over the different workloads high level, and so that we can then do the quiz at the end. So until now, do we have any questions? What did we talk about? We talked about the main thing I want you to know is what is Fabric? What is OneLake? How does OneLake allow you to talk to all of these different workloads? How do you get started with Fabric, right? So you would need to enable it in your tenant, and then provision, either you use the free trial, which is for 60 days, you'll be able to use Fabric, or you can go provision it in the Azure portal and then create a capacity and then attach your workspace to that capacity. And then you start doing your magic. Okay. So I talked about getting your data, right? So we have data flow, data pipelines is sort of who's worked with Azure Data Factory before. So Azure Data Factory is just the tool to get data from, it's an orchestration tool. So it's the same concept as data pipelines. Yes, do you have a question? Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Considering that, for example, doing the orchestrating the formatting on Power Query on top of Power BI desktop, okay? Bringing that into Fabric will bring it in a workspace and will not connect it as the core, let me say, the core tools for Fabric. So what's the best practice to use the tools for formatting and transforming? If I want to start a project, shall I start from Fabric, create, for example, my transformation, create the lake and everything, get a copy, and then work on Power BI desktop and then upload? What would be the steps?
That's a very good question. Okay, so I'm just gonna go a second and then just share my whole screen here. So let's say you've already, let's say if you start from the Fabric experience, right? Let's say someone already came and then they have their pipelines, and then they created a lake house, and then they created a semantic model. For me as a BI reporter, what am I going to do? Am I going to follow all those same steps in my Power BI desktop? That's your question, right?
Yeah. Am I going to replicate the steps or?
So what you would come here, you would just go to your Power BI desktop. You would come to your OneLake catalog, and then you can just connect to the semantic model directly. So you don't need to recreate those steps.
So the output result is a semantic model similar to the one.
Exactly. So you would just connect to that semantic model. If there is no semantic model, you can connect directly to the lake house and the warehouse, and vice versa. Let's say you do the steps in the Power BI in the Power BI desktop, right? So for example, this one here, the semantic model is from the Power BI desktop. I did all my modeling there, and then I publish it to the workspace. When I come here, I can just open the data model here, and then I'll be able to do some changes in the Power BI service. I just come to the editing mode, and then I'll be able to, it's the same, it's like the modeling tab in Power BI desktop, right? So whether you want to start from the service or from the desktop, it's a question to how you manage your cycles. Yeah.
I actually have two questions. The first one has to do with the data meshes and the data lakes. You talked about how the data meshes helps in making the data lake a data lake instead of a data swarm. So I was wondering if there was some sort of a knowledge management tool that enables, for example, automatic data discovery, or is the user responsible for that? Where they would provide, for example, manual annotations for the data sets, let's say the domains of the data sets.
Yeah, so I did skip through that part. So that's what Purview allows you to do. So have that whole like governance and data discovery part. Let me see if I can have those tools here. Okay. And with Purview, you'll be able to exactly do that. Be able to discover, like, for example, this is like have data cataloging essentially. So let's say this is a Power BI report. You'll be able to see like what's the classification there, what is the glossary, what is like the labels on it, and then the lineage of these specific artifacts. So that's what Purview allows you to do. So with Purview Hub and the functions of data map and data catalog, you'll be able to discover the data and then see its trustability and all these things and see if it follows certain data rules and so on.
My second question was actually part of this. I was curious about the role of Fabric within the data governance frameworks within organizations. We saw the lineage, and now we are talking about the Purview. So I just wanted to know the general practices or the tools that it would enable in this case for data governance in general.
Yeah. So there's different tools, different organizations that use, like, you have Purview here. There's also Informatica, Colbera. Different organizations use different tools for data cataloging and also to do like something called like master data management and all these things like prophecy and so on. So Fabric integrates with these tools. So you can use Purview, or you can, if your customer already using another product, it's fine. There's no like vendor lock-in. You can still use the APIs and then be able to do leverage those other tools as well. Okay. So let me see. I just want to make sure I cover everything so that you can actually answer the quiz. So we talked about getting your data into Fabric. So now I'm just gonna go over these components. And please, like, if you have any questions, please, you raise your hand because now I'm just gonna talk about, like, take 2 minutes to talk about each of these workloads. Some of them, like the main part was the OneLake. The other ones are, you would already be familiar with it if you've ever worked on with any of them before. And if you haven't, it's fine. Like when you look at it, you'll get a gist of it, right? So we have notebooks in Fabric, which is essentially just like notebooks in, let me just skip here. Okay. Which is essentially just like notebooks in Jupyter notebooks that you're familiar with. It, if anyone uses Jupyter notebooks, right? So Jupyter notebooks is essentially a place where you can run your Python code, but in a more organized settings. You have like different cells, and then you can run your commands, and then have comments there and documentation. So you will be able to connect to a data source very easily, and then have your Python notebook there, and then underneath it could use Spark, which is a very powerful compute engine to work on big, humongous data. So it's a very easy experience. And then you also have, let me just actually show you. It's easier instead of just showing you a pre-recorded video. So I'm gonna go ahead to my experience here, and then let's say I create a notebook. So I just come to new item, and then I'll click on notebook. I can even import, if I already have like an IPYNB file, I can just import it as well. It's you don't need to start from scratch. So you can just load your notebook, and then you come here, you just connect to the data source, right? So you can have like, see what data source you have access to, and simply just connect to that lake house or warehouse. And then you just write your code. You have tools, integration with VS Code. You have something called Data Wrangler, which allows you to easily, instead of writing, how many of you knows pandas? How many of you know pandas? Right? So Data Wrangler is like a visual tool where you do your transformation steps, and then at the end it generates that pandas code for you, so you don't have to start from scratch. And on top of that, you also have Copilot, the Copilot experience there. So if you don't know how to use Python at all, you're just like a SQL developer, it would be fine. You can just ask Copilot to help you with it, and then it will generate the code for you. Okay, so here. We talked about VS Code integration. We don't need to look at this demo. Okay, so I'm just gonna skip this part. Okay. So let me just go over this part. So we talked about data integration. There's different data sources that you can connect to, whether you want to use pipelines or data flows. The difference between the two is just depending on your experience. Data pipeline is sort of like Azure Data Factory. Data flow is like Power Query experience in Power BI. Usually the data pipeline is recommended for more bigger data loads because Power Query doesn't use Spark underneath, it uses another engine. Okay. And then you could see here data flow. It's a very easy click and drag experience where you can define your transformations. So it's very easy for a BI analyst to get used to. You don't need to know complex SQL code. You would just be able to do your transformations in a simple manner. And then you have also data pipelines, very similar to Azure Data Factory, where you can define your orchestration, like your orchestration flow and how you want your like basically define your ETL jobs. Okay. And then we also have another thing in Fabric called real-time intelligence, which is something really powerful in Fabric. So how many of you have ever worked with like streaming data or real-time IoT data in your organization, right? So these are like some examples of industries that use real-time data, right? So let's say if you have like different cars across the country, like I don't know, someone like Talabat, right? They have like so many motorcycles all around the country. They want to be able to monitor their location, if they're doing like any violations, if the food is being delivered on time, if they're facing any issues. So this data is coming in real time, and it's very important to be able to gather insights on top of that. You also have industries like manufacturing. You want to do like predictive maintenance. You want to detect real time if this equipment is going to fail and intervene before it actually fails to save a lot of cost. Finance, retail, all of these industries, they need real-time intelligence. And Fabric allows you to do that with this. You can ingest your streaming data into Fabric, into what we call event streams. And then you have this concept of Event House, which is essentially a database meant for to work with streaming data. And then you can have reflexes. So essentially think of it as a nervous system for all of your data. You can have, if it can detect different patterns in your data. Let me just show that. Yeah, so you could have different patterns in your data, and then the system would be able to automatically generate alerts to like trigger a pipeline if you see this specific pattern, or send an email, or send a Teams message, or trigger the script to be able to run. Like if I see my sales going down in this specific area, then automatically generate like my my social media posts to be able to increase marketing and so on. So being able to sort of watch these patterns and then automate the reflexes is something that you could do with real-time intelligence in Fabric. Let me see if I can show you this demo. Let's see how long it is. Not gonna go over it. Yeah, so essentially what they're doing here is that they're connecting to a streaming data of different goods, and then they're creating an event stream. Let me see, the audio is not working. And then they check basically, so this specific example is like, those scooters or e-bikes that are around different parks. So this is a specific example, they're connecting to the availability of these bikes around the city. And then whenever there is an event where they see maybe that specific location doesn't have any bikes, automatically it generates an alert or generates a job to be able to pings the people that are responsible to gather all the bikes in that place to get real-time action. Okay. And then this is possible through the data activator as well. So data activator, it does what I just mentioned. You have all of these different data sources. You want to be able to watch for different patterns and then take action, whether it's through sending emails or triggering a flow or another job. Okay. I'm going a bit fast, I understand. I just want you to get a sense, like this session is not meant for you to walk away and be an expert in Fabric. I just want you to sort of get a taste of each of the different workloads that are available to, get that interest. And then if you want to dive deeper into it, we're planning to have sessions about each of these workloads because this is a huge topic, right? So it's just meant for you to get a glimpse and sneak peek of each of these concepts. Okay. So yeah, and then we talked about data science and Fabric. These are some of its features. And I'm just going to skip through these parts. It's just mentioning about how Fabric helps along each step of the data science process, whether it's when you're doing problem formulation and ideation, you can first look at a dashboard and see a trend. And then you want to start thinking about how you can process the data so that you could create a lake house or have some scripts for it. And then you want to be able to run experiments and model the data. You can use Synapse ML and ML Flow to keep track of your experiments. So for those of you who are data scientists, how many times do you get lost into which pickle file is the latest model, or which one of this is the latest weights, right? With ML Flow, it helps you keep track of, okay, this experiment, the accuracy was this much, this experiment was this much, and you have it all in one interface, and you know which one to deploy and put it in production. And then, of course, being able to get insights on top of your predictions and integrate it easily in your semantic model. We talked about data wrangler. It's essentially just a way to, you get your data and then you do your transformations. And then after that, it just generates the Python code for you. So you don't need to be very proficient in pandas for it. So all of these features I'm mentioning goes back to what the goal of Fabric is, right? Essentially to make it easier for all data citizens to work with their data using a simple SaaS experience. Okay, so I think the last thing I just want to show you, just the last thing I want to show you before we leave off is just, okay. So I just want to show you the Copilot experience. You see, we don't want to start all the way from here. Let's just start from here. Okay. So Copilot is available in each of these workloads, right? So with Data Factory, let's say you were ideating and doing a whiteboarding session, and then you decided on how your pipeline is going to look like. You can just draw it out, take a picture of the pipeline, and then with Data Factory, you can translate that pipeline into the image of the pipeline to actual pipeline using Copilot. It helps if you want to actually start using RTI, real-time intelligence, but you have no clue what the heck is KQL and how do you actually get started with it. That's totally fine. You can just use the Copilot experience, and it would help you with it. If you similarly in data engineering and data science, you are not very sure if this query does what it's supposed to do, you can use the Copilot experience to explain things for you and get up to speed with things and become more productive. And there's also the Power BI Copilot, which allows you to translate natural language into visualizations to help you as a developer, and also it helps the end user. So I'm just going to spend the next 2 minutes just demoing the Copilot feature. I don't want to show you the video because that's boring. No one wants to watch videos. Let's see actual models, and then we'll close. Yeah.
There's one more request from online.
Yeah.
They are asking if they can have any link for hands-on labs for this.
So for hands-on labs, if you go to the Learn platform, I think there's information around that. You wouldn't be able to. It's something that like you need to have Fabric available in your tenant because Fabric is something available in the tenant. Not for just sandbox environments. I do know that the Learn team is working on something like that. I don't think it's available. So if you're an employee at a company, then you can ask your organization to give you like some sandbox environment if you have like a proper use case for it. If you're just someone trying to learn, unfortunately, I don't think it would be possible. If you're a student, I think maybe your university gives you an environment and so on. But yeah, this is one limitation. But you need to have it on a tenant level. Okay, so let's say I'm a Power BI developer, and I want to create I have this data set. Essentially, it's like market share data about this company called Van Artsel. There's data about different countries and how each product is performing in each of these countries. So I can just ask it to create a page to analyze sales in Nigeria, for example. Okay, so I have a misspelling there, but that's fine because it should be smart enough to understand. So what it's doing is it's answering the question. So first of all, it's asking me like, this is what I'm gonna do. Are you fine with this? Do you want me to add anything? I'm be like, yeah, go ahead. And then it's using the semantic model that I've developed to answer this question. It's grounding itself in that semantic model and it's generating the visualizations in the report based on that. So I can start with something. I don't have to start with a blank slate, and I can always do more edits to it. So let's say I can be like, hey, like add a year slicer. A slicer is essentially just a way to filter the data. So I'm asking it to go ahead and add a year slicer, and then let's see if it's going to do that. And yeah, so it added a year slicer here. And then you can, you can ask it, like generate a line chart to see trend of Nigeria sales per year. Okay, I didn't test it, so I don't know how it's going to perform. So it's this is in the Power BI desktop. So I'm just working everything in the desktop right now. Of course, I still need to be connected to the internet for Copilot to work because underneath, what is it doing? It's leveraging Azure OpenAI to be able to, it grounds itself in the semantic model. So it uses the metadata and the user question, and then it uses the AI to generate the answer. So underneath, there's like some fine-tuned models that knows about Power BI semantic models and knows these concepts. And then you can tune the answers by coming here. So you have something called like Q&A setup. Let's say like there's specific synonyms just in your organization that you want to map it to, you can do that. If there's like specific relationships that define like how the fields or the measures are related to each other, you can do all of that here. And define if it's like a noun, verb, or so on. And like teach it and see how it performs, like test it out, review questions of like how people are dealing with it. If anyone flagged an incorrect answer, and do that. And then so here it generated the filter, the data for me, the visual for me, and then I can just simply come and add it to my page, and I can like validate if it did the right thing. So it added the correct filter and the correct date and so on. So it helps with the report creation. So this is with regards to the editing experience. And then let's say if you publish it, and then you want to start using like because let's say your CEO, when they interact with the dashboard, they're not gonna use the Power BI service, right? They're gonna just look at this or like look at your app. So they can just come in and open the Copilot button here, and then they'll be able to talk to the data. Like let's say, hey, I have like a meeting coming up. I can just ask it to ground itself in the data and then generate a summary for me that I can use, or I can dig deeper and do a bunch of other things. So this is with regards to the Copilot experience in Power BI, but like I said, all of these Fabric experiences have Copilot enabled in them, which is a really powerful feature. So yeah, it generated the summary for me, and as you can see, it tells me exactly which visual did it ground itself to make sure that I can trust this data. So yeah, it's 8:01. I think we went a bit over time. We have the pizzas outside, Fatah? Oh, they're gonna get cold. Should we ask people to get pizzas and then come inside and play the game? What do you guys want? You want to play the game first?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Yes, you have a question?
Yes, for the Copilot, does it require a specific modeling technique like star modeling or?
Yes, that is a very good question. So if you come here to Copilot, sorry?
Suddenly I feel guilty.
Yeah, so,
Keep it
so
short.
of course there's like it's not just like cost, you just have your semantic model, you enable Copilot, it's gonna work. If your model is like really complicated that not even a human would be able, like if you have a new intern and you're asking them to create a report and they struggle so much to understand what the data fields mean and how is this related to that, if it doesn't pass that test, then Copilot won't be able to understand. If you have really, like for example, I worked with some customers, like their table names were really cryptic, like it was like T1543. Like how and they're asking like a question and then they expect the Copilot to be able to, but like it won't know until you tell it what it is. So like those things that I just mentioned, the Q&A setup, like you add synonyms, that helps. And also there's certain best practices that you need to follow to make sure like, you know, the names are meaningful, right? So if you have, there's this whole documentation about like considerations for semantic models with Copilot use. So it gives you a bunch of advice here. So yeah, that's a good question. Any other questions, or let's go to Kahoot. So I'm gonna also open up the Kahoot here so there's a good time for people to join. So those of you who yeah.
So I work in telecom and customer information is very important for us. So how do we ensure security, customer security or whatever, data security and Fabric?
Okay, that is also a great question. So in Fabric, data is completely secured at rest and in transit. So there's encryption all throughout the cycle. So let's say if you, for example, what are some data sources that you work with?
Basically, we work with databases like Oracle,
Okay.
SQL, and yeah, customer data. Like we have different environments that you said like Fabric capacities for production and like we have codes and yeah, we have different databases.
Okay.
For like production, we have a different database. We cannot allow interns to access that database.
Yeah.
But similarly, we want them to see the code.
Okay.
That's present there.
Okay, yeah. So there's different, there's role-based access control in Fabric, right? So you can give them like just viewer access without being able to edit extra things. You can even have like custom roles. Let's say you want them to only be able to use specific tables or only specific columns. Like, yeah, you have all of the data saved in this table, but you only want the data scientists to be able to create the model on like 5 of these columns, not all of these columns. So you can do like column level security and row level security. In fact, this was one of the major announcements in the Fabric conference that just happened last month about this concept of OneLake security. So it is like, and with there's a note, if you're interested, you could look up the Fabric security white paper that explains every single concept that, you know, a lot of, if let's say someone is interested in having Fabric, you know, sometimes you get a lot of questions from the SOC team, right? Your security team. So to be able to understand these different components and how it works, like the Fabric security white paper will be able to answer a lot of your questions about all of these things that I talked about. So like security, networking security, how do you manage inbound, outbound, connectivity. So it's all like it's a 100-page document that talks about all of these things. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so let's get started. Yeah.
Online kids can also join.
Yeah, can join, but if you win, I don't know how we're gonna find you.
Yeah, they need to come and pick up their gifts.
If you win, just message me on WhatsApp. Okay.
Maya is asking if she can join.
Okay, yeah, Maya can join. Yeah, it's fine. Maya, you can join. Okay, so we have everyone here. Are we ready to get started?
I
I like the Kahoot song. Okay. All right, so yeah, I didn't tell you what you guys are gonna win. So if you get, I forgot one of the gifts. Okay, so you will get, each of the winners will get these Microsoft Fabric flashcards. So I got these straight from headquarters when I visited the team last month. So this is a really great way to study for the Fabric examination. So we have DP 600 and DP 700, which is Fabric Analyst and Fabric Data Engineer, certifications that you can take to get more familiar with Fabric, and these flashcards would help you with it. And also, fun fact: this was fully AI, AI generated. So they talk about how, of course, it was vetted with the team. But if you're interested in creating your own flashcards, you can just look up Fabric flashcards. I can share the link later about like how you can use Azure OpenAI to create your own flashcards. Okay, yalla, let's start. Let's go. So it's only 12 questions. We're gonna start. It's mostly simple. Some of them might be hard, but let's see. So we have 32 people. So we're gonna start with a hard question first. Okay, so remember, Kahoot is about being fast and being right, not just about being right. So make sure that you're correct. So which of these is the Fabric logo? So this is really difficult. What do you think is the right answer? This is also another reason I like Fabric, because it's my initial. Right, so, okay. Why is it, are there some people? Okay. I want it to be faster to not give you a chance. Oh my God, someone got it incorrect. I hope that was because your finger slipped or something, because that is just embarrassing. Okay, so who do we have on the lead? Is this someone in the room? Okay, nice. So it's actually a tie between Wida. Okay, and yeah, Wida, and you have challenge there, and Tasneem, is she in the room with us? Is Tasneem online? Okay, I'm guessing she's online. Okay.
I think it's our network.
Okay, so what is Microsoft Fabric? A unified AI-powered data analysis platform, a web development tool, a cloud storage service, a project management software. What is it for? Yes, so it is a unified AI-powered data analytics platform. Project management software, guys, what have we been talking about? Which part of Fabric? Okay, I can see where you're coming from because it helps you with data projects, but you don't actually manage the project in Fabric. You could use Microsoft Projects for that. Okay, so we have Abdul. Who's that? Okay, nice. Ziad, nice. And then Almas, good. All right, and Niam and Jenna as well. Okay. Which component of Microsoft Fabric is used for data storage? So you've got OneDrive, SQL database, Azure Blob Storage, or OneLake. Okay, so it is the OneLake. So SQL database, you could store data there, but remember at the end, it's all in the OneLake, right? So these other things, you can't store data. It's not the wrong, but the right answer is OneLake. Okay, nice. Tasneem is not in the room, I'm guessing. Yeah, like guys in the room, you need to do a better job. Like, can't let the online people win. What is the primary purpose of OneLake in Microsoft Fabric? For real-time analytics, to manage user identities, or provide a unified data lake, host web applications. What do you use it for? Okay, there's someone who still didn't answer. So it is for having a unified data lake for the organization. So real-time analytics, that's what you use RTI for. So real-time analytics, and then manage user identities. You wouldn't do that in OneLake. You can create roles in the workspace and so on, but that's not what OneLake is for. Okay, Abdul. Who's Abdul again? Oh yes, good job. Which of the following is a key feature of Microsoft Fabric? Limited scalability, manual data integration, on-premise deployment, SaaS architecture. SaaS. I see people are like helping each other. Good, the power of the community. I mean, but remember, we only have like a limited amount of this. Okay, so it's SaaS architecture. So remember, Fabric is SaaSy. So it's not manual data integration. It would, of course, I mean, if you're talking about like you have to click on things, yes, there are some things that are manual. You can automate them. There are like Fabric REST APIs that could help with it. On-premise deployment, no, Fabric is something that lives on the cloud. That's a whole power of it. Okay, Abdul. You have someone else meeting Lena. Who's Lena? Oh, nice. Okay. What is the role of shortcuts in Microsoft Fabric? For data encryption, to delete the data, manage user permissions, or create symbolic links between data locations. Okay, great. Most of you got it correct. So data encryption is something like Microsoft Fabric would manage it for you. And also manage user permission, that's not what shortcuts is for. You would do it on the Visual Fabric architect level. Okay, great. Lena's done the lead. Which of the following is not a component of Microsoft Fabric? Warehouse, Kubernetes service, data factory, or Power BI? Okay. So are we still missing someone? Okay. So yes, AKS is something that lives in Azure. Kubernetes is just some like a place where you can run your different microservices. So yeah, set up data warehouse. It's part of Fabric. Power BI. Okay, we need to speed up, guys. The pizza's gonna get cold. Yalla. I'm just gonna go through them fast now. What is the benefit of using Delta Parquet format in Microsoft Fabric? When I see it as 32, I'm just gonna skip because we can't wait for it. Yalla. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1, and I'm gonna skip. Okay. Yes, so it provides a standardized data. So the other parts are not that correct. Like it's that's not really the main reason for Delta Parquet. Delta Parquet is a data format. In fact, Databricks also uses Delta Parquet format. And that format was invented by the data. So we have Abdul, great, Yalla, let's go. What is a workspace? Is it a place to work out? Is it as a storage account? Is it a way to monitor and keep track of your activities? Is it a collaborative environment to work on Fabric items? Yes, so it's a collaborative environment. It's not where you go to monitor your working activity. That's what the monitor hub is for. And yeah, I don't want to even say anything. Yalla. 3 more questions. Which of these features help in data lineage and ensuring data integrity? I wonder. I'm gonna skip. Wow, the person who got it wrong, I don't even. This is the lead. Okay, which of the following is a key aspect of Microsoft Fabric's security model? Actually, I didn't mention this in my presentation until someone asked the question. So thanks for the person who asked the question. Okay. Yes, encryption is always on, so data is encrypted in motion and at rest, in transit and at rest. So the other ones, it's not on premise, guys. Fabric is not on premise. Fabric is something that's on the cloud. Okay, great. Which tool in Fabric provides a comprehensive view of data governance and compliance? Okay, so it's Purview Hub. Okay, not Data Factory. Okay, last question, guys. So Anonymous and Mariam and Nia. Okay. Last question. What Fabric certifications are available for you to use? FB 600, Fabric 101. So if you were paying attention to the last thing I was mentioning, you would know. Those maybe are intensive. Yeah, so it's DP 600 and DP 700. So let us see who are the winners. Okay. Mariam? Anonymous? Anonymous? You want to remain? You? Okay, great. And first place, Nina. Great. Thank you so much. So all of you will get the flashcard, and then second place, no, actually, first place will get a T-shirt along with that as well. So who are they as well? So Mariam. And Samir, and where's? Yeah. I hope this is your size. If it's not your size, just come.
Yes.
That was it. Okay. And then, of course, all of you can get a copy of these stickers that I have. I'll just be putting them outside that you can put on your laptop. And I have a bunch of other stickers there. Yeah. Do you have questions?
I still need stickers.
Okay, good. And then, guys, if you're getting